A grand castle overlooks a peaceful town. For most, this is just another day. But for our protagonist, it's the start of a shocking new chapter. This is a bit sudden, but I've been reincarnated into a different world, he realizes. In the royal chambers, a baby's cry echoes through the halls. However, the atmosphere in the room is far from celebratory. Standing before the bed where the queen rests, King Gisserat and a mysterious hooded figure exchange grim looks. Something is very wrong. We shall declare that my son, Prince Lionheart, is dead. The king's cold decree leaves the baby, Haruto, in utter disbelief. He had just been reborn, yet his own father is already sentencing him to a theoretical grave. Am I going to get killed right after being reincarnated? He thinks in panic. To understand how he got here, we have to look back. In his previous life, Haruto was a shut-in, driven into isolation after years of relentless bullying in middle school. He spent 5 years living a vague life, staring at screens with no hope for the future. Everything changed in an instant. A sudden, blinding light enveloped him, marking the end of his miserable existence and the beginning of something he never expected. It was at that time that everything began to fade. He woke up to find a beautiful, radiant goddess standing before him. With open arms and a cheerful smile, she welcomed him to the afterlife. "Congratulations," she exclaimed. "After a careful screening process, it has been decided that you will be reincarnated into a different world." Haruto was stunned. Reincarnated?" he stammered, still trying to process the fact that his old life was over and a new fantasy world awaited him. It felt like a dream, or perhaps a prank, but the goddess seemed entirely serious. The goddess explained that since magic exists in this new world, she would grant him a special cheat skill to make his second life easier. Sitting comfortably on the clouds, she checked her tablet, urging him to enjoy this gift to the fullest. Reflecting on his past, Haruto realized he had truly died in that dark room. Now, facing a fresh start, he had only one goal. "I only want one thing, to live a peaceful life." He didn't want glory or fame. He just wanted comfort. His dream was simple, a life where he could immerse himself in games and anime all day, every day, without even noticing the sun setting. To Haruto, that kind of lifestyle was the ultimate definition of being at the top of the world. With a newfound determination, he accepted the goddess's offer. He would use this cheat skill to live the best and laziest life possible. As he vanished into the light, his journey toward a world of magic began. Haruto opens his eyes to a ceiling he doesn't recognize. He looks at his tiny, chubby hands and realizes he's actually a baby. Despite the shock, he's excited. On his chest, a dark, star-shaped mark, the royal crest, shines clearly. "The dash," he chirps, trying to speak. The nurse is overjoyed, presenting the newborn to the king. "It's a healthy boy, your majesty." King Gisserat beams with pride, laughing as he gazes down at his new son. To the world, this is a wonderful moment of royal celebration. "He resembles both of us. He's a beautiful prince," King Gisserat exclaims, pointing out the royal crest on the baby's chest. He is convinced that this child is destined for greatness, bearing the lineage of a powerful dynasty. Looking at his parents, Haruto is impressed. His father is a handsome king, and his mother, the queen, is a radiant beauty who laughs off any silly doubts. Haruto thinks to himself that being born into royalty is the ultimate win. He can finally be the ultimate shut-in without any worries. But first, there's a traditional test. The king orders the hooded mage to measure the prince's magic power immediately. In this world, your fate is decided the moment you are born, and the king expects a staggering number, perhaps even over 50. The king boasts about his son's pedigree. Being the child of the lighting princess who defeated the demon lord, the boy must possess incredible magic power. The orb begins to glow as the measurement starts, everyone waiting with bated breath. The room goes silent as the orb displays the result. 02/02. The hooded mage can barely believe his eyes. The Great Prince Lionheart only has a magic level of 2. It's a number so low it's almost unheard of for royalty. King Gisserat's face contorts with shock and horror. What did you say? Not only is the level pathetic, but the mage reports that the prince has no attribute and can only use basic barrier magic. In an instant, the miracle child has become a disappointment. A heavy silence falls over the room. The queen is speechless, covering her mouth in terror, while the nurse and the mage tremble. The king's pride has been shattered, replaced by a cold, growing resentment toward the helpless baby in the cradle. Lying in his crib, Haruto senses the shift in the air. The warmth and joy from moments ago have vanished, replaced by a chilling tension. Why do I have a bad feeling about this? He wonders, staring blankly at the ceiling. If it's known that my son is such a useless person, I'll be the laughingstock of my subjects. Gisserat rages, clutching his head. The queen agrees, fearing that this dark history will ruin their reputation. Their love for their child was conditional, and he has just failed the test. The royal couple frantically tries to think of a way out of this shame. Suddenly, the king's eyes widen with a sinister realization. That's it, he shouts. He has found a way to erase this mistake from the royal records forever. Hovering over the crib, King Gisserat finalizes his cold decree. The world will be told that Prince Lionheart was stillborn. Rather than face the shame of a weak heir, they choose to erase his existence entirely. In an instant, Haruto's royal identity is traded for a tragic lie. Haruto is paralyzed with dread as he listens to his parents plot his erasure. Just what are they saying? Are they stupid? He thinks, his tiny body trembling with fear. He had dreamed of a peaceful second life, but now he's realizing that his new parents are far more dangerous than anyone he left behind. Panic sets in for the infant Haruto. He can't believe his luck, or lack thereof. Am I really going to get killed right after being reincarnated? He cries out internally, realization hitting him like a ton of bricks. He had hoped for a better start, but he was stuck with parents just as horrible as those in his previous life. Meanwhile, King Gisserat barks orders at his men, commanding them to take the baby and throw him away in a distant, dangerous forest. The grand palace stands tall against the horizon, but within its walls, a cruel fate has been sealed. That's my decision, the king's voice echoes, a finality that leaves no room for mercy. The kingdom that was supposed to be Haruto's home has now become his greatest enemy before he could even take his first step. High above in the clouds, the afterlife is anything but peaceful. Nu then is in a total state of panic as she monitors Haruto's situation on her tablet. Kaya, this is bad, she screams to her colleague. She realizes that the cheat skill she granted was completely misinterpreted by the world's primitive measuring devices. It seems that their measuring device only goes up to 2 digits, she explains, horrified by her own oversight. To make matters worse, she also forgot to give him a proper magic attribute. When asked what she actually set Haruto's magic power at, Nu then sheepishly reveals the truth. The screen on her tablet displays a staggering number, 1002/1002. Haruto isn't a weakling. He's a magical powerhouse whose strength literally broke the scales of his new world. The other goddess can only stare in disbelief. You went way overboard, she mutters, watching as the consequences of Nu then's mistake play out in the world below. Haruto was given the power of a god, but because of a simple digit limit, he's currently being treated like trash. Back on Earth, the king's soldiers have reached the heart of a dense forest. They leave the small, woven basket containing baby Haruto on the grass. Though they feel a twinge of guilt, calling him a very unfortunate child, they are more concerned with their own safety. Let's get out of here before any monsters show up, one of them says, turning his back on the helpless infant. The soldiers beat a hasty retreat, leaving the forest quiet once more. Haruto is truly alone now, abandoned in a place where only the strongest survive. The shadow of the massive trees looms over his small cradle, a stark contrast to the royal luxury he was born into just hours ago. Haruto looks up at the leaves with a deadpan expression. The gravity of his situation is finally sinking in. Are you serious? Isn't this a big problem? He thinks, his brow furrowed in annoyance. He was supposed to be living the easy life, but now he's basically monster food. He realizes he can't even move his tiny limbs properly. If he wants to survive, he has to use what he has. He remembers the goddess mentioning barrier magic and decides to give it a shot. Closing his eyes, he begins to imagine various shapes and symbols, focusing all his will on manifesting a protective force. A faint pop sound echoes through the clearing. A perfect, translucent cube of energy appears right before his eyes. Haruto's eyes widen in delight. I did it, he cheers internally. It seems his cheat is more intuitive than he expected. Experimenting further, Haruto finds that using magic isn't hard at all. He can manipulate the barrier with ease, making it bigger, smaller, and even changing its color to a vibrant rainbow pattern. He's starting to enjoy himself, treating his newfound power like a high-tech toy. He soon discovers that he can shape the barriers into anything he wants. A bird flies by, giving him an idea for practical use. Yes, I'm flying, he exclaims as he creates a barrier around his basket, lifting himself off the ground. He's no longer a grounded infant. He's an airborne fortress. Floating safely above the forest floor, Haruto starts planning his next move. He needs to figure out how to attack in case a monster shows up. The best part? He doesn't feel drained at all. This magic is way more useful than what I had thought. He thinks with a smug little smile. Nice. Speak of the devil. A massive, snarling beast with silver-gray fur and piercing red eyes steps out from the shadows. It's Freya, a legendary Fenrir, and she's looking directly at Haruto. The baby's smugness evaporates instantly. What the heel? This is too sudden, he screams in his head. The massive wolf doesn't hesitate. She opens her jaws wide, revealing rows of razor-sharp teeth as she prepares to swallow the floating basket whole. Freya's eye glows with hunger, and Haruto realizes he's about to experience the monster showing up, part of his plan, much sooner than he wanted. Protection, Haruto yells in his mind. In an instant, a sturdy barrier cube forms around him. Freya slams her teeth down onto the energy wall, but instead of a snack, she finds herself biting into something as hard as diamond. The impact creates a massive shockwave, but the barrier holds firm. Freya is shocked, her eye widening as she realizes this tiny human is actually putting up a fight. Haruto, seeing an opening, decides to change tactics. Then, I'll make lots of small ones, he thinks. He begins manifesting dozens of tiny, star-like barriers, filling the air around him. Attack, Haruto commands. The swarm of small barriers flies forward, peppering Freya's massive body. The wolf is caught off guard by the sheer volume of the projectiles, growling as she tries to fend them off. It's like being hit by a barrage of magical buckshot. The wolf roars, the small barriers leaving glowing marks on her fur, but she's far from defeated. Haruto realizes his current attack didn't do that much damage. He needs something heavier, something that can actually take down a creature of this size. He looks around the forest, his mind racing for a new weapon. An idea strikes him. Isn't there something bigger that I can hit it with? He thinks. Using his barriers as magical pulleys, he latches onto two massive trees nearby. With a sudden burst of power, he rips them right out of the ground, roots and all. Haruto isn't playing around anymore. Take this! Haruto launches the massive trees at Freya. The air screams as the heavy timber hurtles toward the wolf. Haruto watches with intense focus, sweating from the sheer effort of manipulating such huge objects. This is his ultimate trump card, nature itself turned into a projectile. Freya lets out a pained GYH as the first tree slams into her, pinning her to the ground with a thunderous crash. Dust and leaves fly everywhere as the second tree follows suit. Haruto watches the carnage from above, panting. Was that enough? He wonders, hope rising for a moment. His hope is short-lived. To his absolute horror, Freya begins to stir beneath the fallen timber. With a low, guttural growl, She shakes off the debris and stands up once more, looking even angrier than before. What? It got up again. Haruto screams internally, his eyes bugging out in shock. This wolf is way tougher than any RPG boss he ever faced. Haruto is in full-blown panic mode. Even a bunch of trees aren't enough, he wails, his face turning pale. As a lone baby facing a monster that seems completely invincible, his dream of a peaceful, lazy life is rapidly slipping through his fingers. He realizes that if he doesn't do something truly massive right now, he won't survive the next minute. Then how about this? Haruto decides to go all out, channeling his immense power into a single, terrifying strike. He creates a massive, concentrated barrier sphere that crackles with enough energy to level the entire clearing. Freyma's eyes go wide, her pupils shrinking in pure terror as she stares up at the looming magical nuke. As the overwhelming light begins to envelop the forest, the wolf realizes she has finally met something she cannot defeat. As the massive shadow of the barrier looms over the clearing, the terrifying beast suddenly cowers in fear. Wait! Stop! I surrender! The giant wolf yells, her eyes wide with desperation. Haruto, still floating in his protective energy, is caught completely off guard. Surrender? He wonders, looking around his cradle with a confused expression. Who said that? The giant wolf doesn't give him a chance to ignore her. I said that I surrender, she bellows, her jaws open in a frantic plea. But Haruto, still in his go-all-out mindset, looks almost bored by the interruption. Well, whatever, he thinks, ready to drop the hammer and finish what he started. The sheer difference in power is terrifying. The apex predator is now nothing more than a beggar for mercy. Suddenly, the realization hits him like a bolt from the blue. His eyes widen, his tiny mouth agape in shock. So is the dog. He stops the massive attack just in time, staring down at Freyma with newfound interest. He hadn't expected the monster to have such a clear, human-like voice, especially one that could communicate its surrender so effectively. Freyma sits back, her posture now submissive and respectful as she looks at the floating baby. I thought I could eat you to replenish my magic power, she admits, looking exhausted and scarred from the previous attacks. She never expected a mere infant to be this powerful. Just who are you? She wonders, her fierce red eyes now filled with a mix of awe and lingering fear for the master of such immense magic. Haruto tries to respond, but all that comes out is a soft, innocent D8 dash. The contrast between his devastating power and his physical form is jarring. Freyma looks genuinely annoyed, her fur bristling slightly. You can't speak? Even though it looked like you were mature enough to act rationally, she grumbles. It's a frustrating situation for both. A legendary Fenrir defeated by a baby who can't even introduce himself. Haruto scratches his tiny chin, deep in thought. Not being able to speak is too inconvenient. He realizes, but a genius idea quickly takes shape in his mind. What if I made a sound-emitting barrier? Then if I put it in my throat and control it with my thoughts? He starts experimenting with the energy, manifesting a small, complex cube. Slowly, he manages to squeeze out a sound. In dash. The first step toward a true conversation has begun. Creepy. The giant wolf jumps back in shock. Little does she know, Haruto is using his barrier magic to create a fake vocal cord just to communicate with her. Talk about a weird first meeting. Haruto casually drops his tragic backstory. He was born in this kingdom, but thrown away because his magic power seemed too low. Freyma, the legendary wolf, can hardly believe a human would throw away a child with this much potential. As she stands before him, Freyma begins to feel it, an immense, terrifying aura of magic radiating from the tiny baby. It's way past any human limit she's ever encountered. Suddenly, it clicks for her. Could it be? You're the demon lord's reincarnation? She shouts. Haruto is caught off guard by the massive misunderstanding, but he doesn't have much of a choice but to react. That's right. I'm the demon lord, Haruto says with a straight face, deciding to roll with a lie just to get her to stop talking. Freya looks like her life's mystery has finally been solved. Freya immediately rolls over, exposing her belly in total submission. "Go on and kill me," she says, fully accepting her defeat at the hands of the supposed demon lord. But Haruto isn't looking for a fight. He just asks her to promise not to attack him again. Freya is moved to tears by such kindness from a being she thinks is the ultimate evil. Freya from the Fenrir clan swears upon her name to never break this promise. Haruto is just glad things didn't get messy, flashing a relieved smile at his new friend. Haruto tries to make a polite exit, calling her Fry-san. Freya's eye widens in pure shock. Being addressed with such an honorific by the demon lord himself is way more than she expected. "Wait a moment, Haruto-sama," she calls out. She can't let him just walk away like that. Not after he spared her life and gave her a new sense of purpose. Freya offers her entire being to him, pledging herself as his servant forever. With that, a formal contract between the baby and the legendary beast is established in the middle of the forest. Haruto can't believe his luck, or lack of it. Somehow, he just turned a giant, dangerous wolf into his loyal servant. He's officially acquired a very large dog. How do we even get to contract talk? Haruto wonders as he stares at Freya, who looks incredibly serious and devoted now. This definitely wasn't in his survival plan. Freya is blushing, absolutely delighted with the shortened version of her name, Fry. Meanwhile, Haruto is starting to feel a bit faint. Something is definitely wrong. Freya panics as Haruto suddenly goes limp. He's just realized a fundamental problem that even his overpowered magic can't solve. He's a hungry baby. Haruto's inner monologue is desperate. "Please give me boobies," he thinks, sweating as his energy drains away. Even the strongest magic doesn't fill an empty stomach. A game-like status window appears. Haruto's HP is at 0. He has to make a choice, and the only path forward is to beg for breast milk. This is peak survival. His stomach growls loudly. Freya, desperate to help her master, resolves to do anything necessary to resolve this situation. She's ready to go beyond her wolf form. A bright light surrounds Freya as she begins her transformation. Haruto watches from the grass, wondering what on earth is about to happen next. The light fades, revealing Freya in her human form. She's successfully transformed into a beautiful woman, but there's one minor problem. She's completely naked. Freya looks around, confused by Haruto's shocked reaction. "Is there something wrong?" she asks innocently, totally unaware of human concepts like modesty. Haruto is blushing like a tomato, screaming internally for her to put on some clothes. Freya is frantic, trying to understand why her master is so upset. Freya uses magic to conjure a suit, but she creates a skin-tight, highly suggestive black bodysuit. Haruto's nose is practically bleeding from the sheer intensity of the situation. "It became more erotic," he cries out. Freya unzips her suit, ready to get down to business. Haruto is mortified, but with his stomach growling, he has no choice but to brace himself for this incredibly awkward feeding session. Just when it couldn't get any weirder, Freya sheds the suit entirely, claiming she's doing her best. Haruto facepalms in pure frustration, little knowing that his legendary servant is about to drop an even more devastating biological bombshell. Freya explains a hard truth to her master. As a beast, she can only produce breast milk after she's actually reproduced. She's blunt about it, but the reality for Haruto is looking pretty grim. Haruto stares at her, realizing his legendary wolf servant is a complete and total airhead. Meanwhile, Freya sinks into a deep depression, feeling utterly useless because she can't even provide a simple meal for her lord. Trying to be a good master, Haruto tells Freya not to be so depressed. She's kneeling in the grass, full of regret for her imprudent remarks, when suddenly her fox ears twitch. She senses someone approaching. Freya's expression sharpens. Her survival instincts kick in as she warns Haruto that a stranger is closing in on their location. The peaceful moment is officially over. Haruto isn't taking any chances. He uses his barrier magic to create a floating basket for himself, remaining cautious. While Freya immediately asks if she should kill the intruder, Haruto wants to understand the stranger's goal first. Talk before violence, a novel concept for a wolf. Using a floating magic cube to broadcast his voice, Haruto remains hidden while Freya stands her ground. Out of the forest steps a man in heavy armor. This is Margrave Gordo, a veteran warrior carrying a massive hammer on his back. Margrave Gordo stands before them, his presence imposing and his gaze steady. He doesn't look like a common forest bandit. He's someone of status and power. Freya demands to know his business. Gordo doesn't mince words. He's come to pick up the baby. Freya's response is a violent shout. She refuses instantly, leaving Gordo confused as to why a monster girl is protecting a human child. With a proud smirk, Freya claims that Haruto became her lord just a while ago, so he already belongs to her. She's making it very clear that anyone trying to take him will have to go through her. In the background, Haruto is thinking that he never actually agreed to belong to her. Gordo laughs at the strange dynamic and explains that the baby is a relative's child who was cruelly thrown away. He's here to save him, not harm him. Freya isn't buying it. She yells that she doesn't understand humans at all. Why throw something away only to come picking it back up later? Gordo can only sigh, remarking that humans are complicated beings driven by feelings. Seeing the baby's plight, Gordo pulls out a bag. It's breast milk he brought with him, knowing a newborn abandoned in the forest would be starving. He asks Freya to give it to Haruto. Haruto's eyes practically pop out of his head. That's food for a starving infant. That bag of milk looks like a miracle sent from heaven. Gordo tries to pass the milk, but Freya is furious. She feels insulted by his implication that she can't provide for her lord. Haruto is caught in the middle, crying out in his mind for her to just take the food before he dies of hunger. Freya's pride is her biggest flaw right now. She shouts that she'll show him she can produce it herself, while Haruto's internal monologue is just a scream of, "Is this girl really stupid?" He's starving to death while she's having an ego trip. Gordo sighs deeply, telling Freya to just be quiet. He points out the obvious. There's no way a beast like her could properly raise a human baby. Freya is too stubborn to listen, but Gordo's logic is sound. Haruto is in total despair, staring at the food he can't reach while the two adults argue. Meanwhile, Gordo looks at Freya and asks the real question. Why is a legendary Fenrir so obsessed with a human infant anyway? Margrave Gordo starts to share a personal, painful memory. He reveals that his wife had been pregnant once, but she never got to give birth to her child. The loss has clearly left a deep mark on him. Freya is stunned into silence by the story. Gordo looks at Haruto and says that while others threw him away for being worthless, those things aren't important to him. He sees a life that deserves to be saved. Looking down at the tiny Haruto, Gordo says with conviction that no matter whose child he is, he still wants to praise him just for being born. It's a moment of pure, unexpected fatherly warmth. Haruto is genuinely touched by Gordo's words. For someone who was cast out by his biological parents for a measurement error, hearing that he's worthy of praise just for existing is a powerful revelation. Freya, being the emotional airhead she is, starts bawling her eyes out. What a sad story, she wails, completely moved by Gordo's tragic past. Haruto can only stare at her, baffled by her sudden outburst. Freya keeps crying, sobbing about how sad it is for a mother who couldn't hug her child. Gordo is weirded out, thinking what a bizarre demon he's encountered, one who makes a baby her lord and then cries over human stories. Seeing a path forward, Margrave Gordo makes a proposal. If Freya wants to stay with Haruto, she must serve as an attendant in his estate. Still emotional from Gordo's tragic story, Freya agrees, realizing this is the best chance for her lord to survive. With the deal is sealed, Haruto is finally safe from the forest quagmire, but the threat of the royal family still looms large. To ensure they never come looking for the abandoned prince, Gordo prepares to carry out a grim deception to erase the child's existence from the world. Margrave Gordo swings his massive hammer, but he's not fighting monsters. He's clearing the evidence and setting the stage for a desperate plan to save a child's life. To fool the cruel royal family, Gordo creates a grisly fake crime scene. He rips Haruto's royal swaddle and pours animal blood over the basket, making it look like the useless prince was devoured by beasts. Freya and Haruto watch in silence as their old identities are destroyed. "Let's go," Gordo says, his face grim with resolve. Freya follows, carrying the tiny Haruto, but she's still clinging to her pride. Even now, she's huffing about being able to provide breast milk herself, much to Haruto's silent disbelief. This girl is truly something else. As the forest fades into the distance, Haruto's heart and stomach cry out in agony. "My food!" He screams internally, realizing his one chance at a real meal just got left behind in the chaos. Survival is hard when your guardian is an airhead wolf. Time flows like a river, and 9 years pass in a flash. The scene shifts to a majestic castle perched high on the rocks, the new home of the boy who was supposed to be dead. Haruto, now a healthy 9-year-old boy, walks into the breakfast room with a bright good morning. He's found a real family here. Margrave Gordo reads the morning paper like any father, while his kind wife and Haruto's adorable little sister, Char, wait at the table. It's a peaceful life he never thought he'd have. But some things never change. Haruto walks through the halls with Freya, who has officially traded her bodysuit for a maid's uniform. He survived against all odds, living under Gordo's protection while his loyal and still slightly eccentric wolf maid stays by his side. The real story is only just beginning. 9 years have passed since Haruto was cast out by his royal family and taken in by the kind Margrave Gordo, who he now calls father. Life is cozy, and honestly, Haruto is starting to like it a bit too much. He originally planned to leave as soon as he could walk, but this shut-in lifestyle is just too addictive. But there's one small problem: his little sister, Charlotte. Meet Haruto's adorable 9-year-old sibling who, for some reason, seems absolutely terrified of him. Haruto can't help but feel a little hurt by the rejection. Being hated by a little girl is a new low for his ego. Then there's Freya, the legendary Fenrir who Haruto tamed, now living here as a maid. She's as arrogant as ever toward everyone else, but when it comes to Haruto, she's all about that extra-large portion of food. She might be a powerful demon, but she's definitely found her place in the kitchen. Even the scary Freya has a soft spot for little Charlotte. She tries her best to be kind, even if her version of kindness involves forcing the girl to eat every last bite. Charlotte looks a bit overwhelmed, but she doesn't seem to be running away in fear. It's actually quite strange. Charlotte is incredibly attached to Freya, greeting her with a bright smile every morning. But the second Haruto suggests they play together, Freya shuts him down immediately, claiming she has duties to attend to. Talk about a cold shoulder. However, one direct order from her master changes everything. With Haruto's permission, Freya agrees to play, much to Charlotte's delight. The little girl is absolutely beaming, while Freya just looks like she's tolerating a very enthusiastic puppy. As Haruto watches them play from the window, he can't help but feel a bit left out. While Charlotte and Freya run around the garden, Haruto is stuck inside, pondering why his own sister avoids him like the plague. It's a tough pill to swallow for a guy who just wants a peaceful family life. His mother, Gizelot, notices his brooding and tries to comfort him. She doesn't see Charlotte's behavior as a problem at all, but Haruto isn't so sure. He knows there's something more to that look in his sister's eyes. Gizelot's theory is simple. Charlotte is just shy around boys her age and doesn't know how to handle them. Meanwhile, Charlotte is busy tackling Freya's massive, fluffy tail like it's the greatest toy in the world. It seems she's perfectly fine with the opposite sex as long as they have fur. Gizelot is convinced she's right, nodding to herself with maternal pride. Haruto, on the other hand, isn't buying it. He knows his sister is smart. maybe even smart enough to sense the 30-year-old soul hiding inside his 9-year-old body. Haruto realizes that Charlotte has no problem with Freya being a demon. It's the boy part she's struggling with. Or maybe it's just that Freya's tale is simply irresistible. Poor Freya is being manhandled, but she knows better than to complain. The thought that Charlotte might see through his disguise sends a shiver down Haruto's spine. If she knows he's actually a 30-year-old uncle in disguise, his dream of a lazy, peaceful life is as good as gone. He's officially panicking now. His imagination runs wild as he pictures Charlotte calling him gross and telling him to stay away because he smells like an uncle. It's a devastating blow to his confidence, leaving him slumped on the floor in total despair. Even Gizelot's attempts to cheer him up aren't working. Gizelot suggests that Haruto should try acting more like a proper big brother. Maybe a gift or a little more social interaction would bridge the gap. But for an unsociable guy like Haruto, that feels like trying to climb a mountain without any gear. She reminds him that as the heir to this magnificent castle, he shouldn't spend all his time locked in his room. He needs to get outside and bond with his sister. Haruto gives a weak, forced smile, promising to try, but internally he's already planning his retreat. Back in the safety of his room, Haruto flops onto his bed. He's been working on a secret project for years, a barrier magic copy robot. He figures if he can create a perfect double of himself, he can finally leave this place and live his dream of being a total shut-in. The research has taken 9 long years, but there's a major flaw. The guy still can't talk. Haruto pokes and prods at his magical double, sighing in frustration. He can't move him into his place until the doll is perfect, and perfection is taking way longer than expected. Suddenly, a horrifying realization hits him. If he's going to leave without making anyone sad, he doesn't just need a double of himself. He needs one to frame it too. The sheer amount of work ahead makes him want to scream. How many more years will it take before he can finally retire? Just as he's spiraling into a crisis, a knock at the door interrupts his thoughts. It's his father, Margrave Goldo, and he's got that look in his eye that usually means trouble. Haruto has a very bad feeling about where this is going. Goldo takes him out to the courtyard and drops the bombshell. He's going to start teaching Haruto sword arts. Haruto's face says it all. Sword training? Physical labor? That is the exact opposite of what a shut-in wants to do. This surprise is more like a nightmare. Haruto doesn't even bother hiding his disgust. He tries to argue that sword arts aren't really his thing, but Goldo isn't listening. He's determined to turn his son into a proper warrior, whether Haruto likes it or not. Goldo explains his reasoning. Since Haruto's magic level is extremely low, or so the machines say, he needs to excel in other areas. It's for his own good. Haruto just stares at him, wishing he could tell his dad that his magic is actually off the charts. Thinking quickly, Haruto fakes a cough and suggests an alternative. Instead of swinging swords, why not let him research barrier magic instead? He calls it appropriate for his level, hoping his dad will fall for the bait. Anything to avoid breaking a sweat. Goldo pauses, his mind turning over Haruto's clever proposal. To him, studying lost magic sounds like a noble, ambitious pursuit, and Haruto holds his breath, praying his father takes the bait so he can finally return to his room in peace. Goldo gives him a satisfied smile, even apologizing for doubting his son's focus. He's genuinely impressed, and for a moment, Haruto thinks he's successfully navigated his way back to a life of leisure. He waves goodbye, feeling triumphant. But he's about to learn that his father's enthusiasm is a double-edged sword. Margrave Gordo isn't letting Haruto off the hook that easily. It's not as if you don't have any talent in sword arts, he says, encouraging his son to at least give it a try. Haruto, internally sighing, realizes there's no escaping this workout. Refusing his father just isn't an option. The match is set. Haruto knows his father isn't just some guy with a sword. He's the legendary earth-ringing warhammer. In Haruto's mind, the odds are stacked so high that landing even a single hit feels completely impossible. He's basically a level 2 newbie facing a final boss. Knowing his physical limits, Haruto decides to cheat a little or a lot. He secretly wraps himself in an invisible barrier to boost his fragile strength. He thinks he's being clever, completely unaware that his little sister, Charlotte, is peeking from around a pillar, watching the whole thing unfold with wide eyes. Okay then, I will just end it quickly, Haruto tells himself. With his invisible armor in place, he launches himself toward his father with a burst of speed that's definitely not normal for a 9-year-old. The two of them clash in a flurry of movement. Haruto's strike hits with far more force than Margrave Gordo anticipated, the impact ringing out across the courtyard as the wooden swords collide. The result? A snapped sword and a very, very confused Margrave. Haruto realizes his mistake immediately. He forgot to put a barrier on the sword itself, causing it to shatter against his father's defense. Gordo is left staring at the broken hilt, his face a mask of pure shock. What did you just do? Haruto is terrified, wondering if his dad is angry about the broken equipment. He stammers. But Gordo isn't mad. He's intrigued. He decides to ramp things up, telling himself he'll stop if things get too intense. But for now, he wants to see what his son is truly capable of. The intensity jumps to a new level. Haruto's adult instincts flare up as he executes a perfect, high-speed mid-air dodge, spinning away from his father's follow-up attack with the grace of a seasoned warrior. Haruto sticks the landing, his heart pounding. That was dangerous, he thinks, more concerned that his dad didn't actually stop himself as promised. He's more worried about his physical safety than the incredible skill he just displayed. The silence that follows is deafening. Haruto questions if his dad really meant to go that hard, while Gordo just stands there stunned. He knows that dodging an attack like that requires a combat level of at least 30, something a level 2 kid should find physically impossible. What is it? Haruto asks, feeling the heavy atmosphere. Gordo is sweating now, his mind reeling. That attack cannot be avoided unless you're a level 30 or more, he says, his voice full of disbelief. He's starting to realize his son might be a monster in disguise. Haruto tries to play it cool. Is that so? He says, scratching the back of his head. He claims he just jumped when his father started to move, hoping his dad will buy the beginner's luck excuse. Internally, he's terrified he's revealed too much. In a moment of quiet reflection, Haruto thinks back to when he used his barrier magic to create his own testing crystal. He was so sure his level would be in the hundreds, or maybe even 200. He'd even seen something strange about his status and wanted to be sure. But the crystal didn't lie, 002. Haruto was crushed. He knew the highest recorded magic level in human history was 77, so his 4-digit capacity dream was officially dead. Or so he thought, concluding that he was just a no-attribute kid who the goddess gave a little cheat power to use magic efficiently. What a disappointment, he sighs. Back in the courtyard, Gordo is lost in his own thoughts, mumbling about how Haruto seems completely unconscious of his own terrifying potential. Haruto can only stand there awkwardly, wondering what's going through his father's head as he stares off into space. Now then, let's continue our practice, Gordo decides, much to Haruto's horror. He's determined to turn his son into a first-class swordsman, completely ignoring Haruto's exhausted groans. Meanwhile, Charlotte continues her silent observation from the shadows, her eyes fixed on her low-level brother. Later that evening, the castle is quiet. Margrave Gordo is back in his office, buried under paperwork, but his mind is clearly elsewhere. Gizelot is nearby, watching over a sleeping Charlotte on the sofa. The day's events have left everyone drained, but the questions linger in the air. Gizelot notices her husband's fatigue and suggests he take a rest. Gordo lets out a long, weary sigh as he finally puts down his quill. The weight of the world, and his son's mysterious power, is clearly taking its toll on the legendary warrior. As they settle in with some hot tea, Gizelot asks about the sword training. Gordo's face goes grim as he recalls Haruto's movements. It wasn't just skill, it was something other, something that's been gnawing at him all afternoon. Gordo drops a bombshell. He might be a demonic being, or so to speak, he says, his voice low and serious. Gizelot is absolutely stunned, her eyes widening in shock at the dangerous accusation her husband is making. "Dear, what are you saying?" Gizelot hisses, quickly trying to shush him. It's a terrifying thought, one that could put their family in grave danger if anyone else were to hear it. But Gordo's expression doesn't waver. He's dead serious. Gordo explains the history of relationships between humans and demons, though he admits such occurrences are extremely rare. Gizelot quickly points out the obvious. Haruto doesn't have horns nor a tail. She's determined to see her son as a normal boy, despite the strange power he displays. But Gordo points to other clues, the fact that Freya, an actual demon, admires Haruto so much. He also mentions the mysterious royal crest on Haruto's chest, wondering if it holds a hidden, dark power that's beginning to awaken. There are just too many secrets surrounding the boy. Gizelot won't hear it. "No, Haruto is only a normal child," she cries out, her motherly instincts flaring up to shield her son from such dark labels. She refuses to believe he is anything but the sweet boy she's raised. Yet Gordo's heavy silence suggests his worries about Haruto's true nature are only just beginning. Trying to push the suspicion aside, she comforts herself by stroking Charlotte's hair, clinging to the hope of a peaceful family life. She desperately wants to believe in Haruto's innocence, even as her husband remains fixated on the terrifying strength of the level 2 child, completely unaware that their whispered conversation is reaching more ears than they intended. Margrave Gordo and Gizelot share a tender moment, their conversation turning from suspicion to parental devotion. Despite the mystery surrounding Haruto, their goal remains the same, ensuring their children's happiness, no matter what might happen to them in the future. It's a heavy burden, but one they carry with love. Nearby, Charlotte lies quietly, her eyes filled with thought. She's heard everything. Her brother might not be a demon in the traditional sense, but she knows he's hiding a power that even their parents can't fully comprehend. The secret is out, at least for her. As Charlotte drifts towards sleep, her parents' voices continue to echo in the room. They discuss the rising danger in the territory. The bandit attacks are increasing, and the pressure on Gordo to protect their people is mounting. The peaceful life they've built is under threat. A few days later, Haruto is enjoying some rare tranquility. With his father buried in paperwork and defensive planning, the brutal sword training sessions have finally stopped. For a guy who just wants to be a shut-in, this is absolute heaven, until the world outside decides otherwise. The silence of his room is shattered by a sudden, frantic commotion in the hallways. Voices are screaming for medical supplies, and the heavy thud of running boots vibrates through the floor. Haruto sits up, his peaceful morning officially ruined by whatever chaos is unfolding outside his door. He steps out to see a scene of pure carnage. The castle courtyard is overflowing with injured soldiers, their armor shattered and bodies bloodied. It's a field hospital in all but name, with the castle staff working frantically to keep the men alive. This wasn't a skirmish, it was a slaughter. The panic is palpable. Officers are shouting orders, desperate to find anyone with even a drop of restoration magic. The healers are overwhelmed, forced to prioritize the dying over the merely wounded. In the middle of it all, Haruto spots his father, looking like a ghost of his former self. Gordo is slumped on a crate, his head bowed in total defeat. He's unharmed physically, but the weight of his men's lives is crushing him. Haruto approaches slowly, his voice small as he asks the question he's afraid to hear the answer to. What happened? Gordo explains the ambush. They thought they had the upper hand, moving to eliminate a bandit base, but they were blindsided. The bandits were far more organized and ruthless than anything they'd faced before, striking from the shadows and disappearing before the counterattack could land. What a shameful display. Gordo growls, clutching his head in agony. He blames himself for every drop of blood spilled in the courtyard. He thought he was prepared, thought he was perfect, and his pride has cost his men dearly. The legendary warrior is completely broken. Haruto looks at the suffering soldiers and his grieving father, and for the first time in 9 years, The lazy, shut-in soul within him is gone. His fists clench so tightly his knuckles turn white. He's not going to just stand by and watch his family's peace be destroyed. It's time for the level 2 child to show the world what he's truly capable of. The peaceful life in the Zemphis territory is suddenly shattered. The soldiers return, but not in victory. They are battered, bloodied, and broken after a brutal ambush by what seemed like mere bandits. Margrave Gordo looks on in despair, his heart heavy for his men. Beside him stands Haruto, his young adoptive son, and Freya, the legendary Fenrir who now serves as their maid. Though Haruto tries to maintain his typical indifferent facade, he can't ignore the suffering before him. Margrave Gordo turns to his son, his voice filled with a father's protection. He urges Haruto to go back inside, believing this scene of carnage is far too much for a child to witness. He has no idea that the young boy standing there is actually a 30-year-old soul with power beyond imagination. Freya can't contain her indignation. To her, it's pathetic that these soldiers were taken down by simple bandits, and she doesn't hesitate to voice her disdain. But her words only add tension to an already tragic situation. Suddenly, the air grows heavy. Haruto turns to Freya, his eyes turning cold and sharp. With a terrifying authority that brooks no argument, he commands her to shut her mouth. For a moment, the true demon king within him flickers to the surface. Freya freezes, her breath hitching in her throat. She has never seen Haruto truly angry before. The weight of his presence is overwhelming, leaving her completely speechless and trembling. As Haruto walks through the crowd of wounded men, strange, transparent cubes begin to manifest above the soldiers. Invisible to everyone else, these barrier constructs represent Haruto's unique and absolute magic. One of the soldiers looks down in confusion as a cube descends upon his mangled leg. In a flash of soft light, the pain begins to recede, replaced by a warmth he can't explain. Confusion turns to sheer disbelief. My wound, it's gone. I can move my foot again. Cry after cry of joy rings out as the soldiers realize their fatal injuries have vanished as if they were never there. The courtyard, once filled with the groans of the dying, is now a scene of miraculous recovery. Men who are on the brink of death are standing up, stretching, and cheering, while the townspeople look on in awe. Margrave Gordo is stunned into silence. He searches for an explanation, wondering what kind of divine intervention just occurred. He looks at his men, then back at the castle, completely unaware that his level 2 son is the source of this miracle. Later that night, the castle is quiet. As Freya walks through the grand hallways, she seems troubled, her usual confidence replaced by a somber silence. Meanwhile, in his room, Haruto is finally drifting off into a well-deserved sleep. The next morning, Haruto wakes up feeling refreshed, yawning as he remembers the exhaustion of healing so many people. But when he opens his door to start his day, he finds Freya standing right there, waiting for him. Haruto greets her, but Freya remains eerily silent. She just stares at him with a sad, distant expression. "Oi, Fry," he calls out, wondering why she's acting so strangely. Then it hits him. The realization strikes like a lightning bolt. Don't tell me. She's still obeying my order from yesterday? He had told her to shut her mouth, and she had taken the command literally, remaining silent for the entire night. Haruto looks at her, half impressed and half exasperated. Has she been silently standing here while I was sleeping? He can't help but think she's a bit of a stupid girl for being so incredibly literal, even if it is out of pure loyalty. My bad. I was upset a while ago. Haruto apologizes, feeling a twinge of guilt. It's okay to talk now. He scratches his head, realizing just how much power his words hold over the former Fenrir. Freya immediately bows, her voice finally returning. She apologizes for her rudeness, appearing genuinely depressed. Haruto can only look on in confusion. He's the one who made the mistake, yet she's the one feeling sorry. With the air cleared, Haruto gets down to business. He uses his barrier magic to project multiple surveillance windows, scanning the surrounding lands. He needs to find out who really attacked his father and the soldiers. The images show various locations, forests, mountains, and a distant, fortified structure. Haruto's eyes dart from screen to screen, his mind working like a master strategist to piece the puzzle together. He spots them, a group of men drinking and celebrating at a hidden base. They look like bandits, but something is off. Seems like there are some ordinary soldiers as well around the bandit-like men. Haruto observes, noting their disciplined posture and equipment. Freya narrows her eyes. By any chance, are they the ones who gave out intel on us to the enemy? It's clear this wasn't just a random attack. It was a coordinated strike intended to assassinate Margrave Gordo. Spies, huh? Haruto muses. He realizes that as long as these people are around, they will keep interfering with the peaceful, shut-in life he's trying so hard to build. And if they dare to trouble his father, they have crossed a line. His decision is final, and the cold, decisive side of Haruto takes over. All right, let's destroy them thoroughly. Freya nods, her eyes glowing with a hunter's anticipation as they prepare to strike under the cover of darkness. Moments later, they take flight, soaring into the night sky toward the enemy fort. But as they ascend against the moon, they aren't as alone as they think. Watching from a castle window is Charlotte, Haruto's younger sister, her sharp eyes following their silhouettes in stunned silence. "Brother, just what are you?" she whispers as they vanish toward the distant mountains. High above the mountain pass, the enemy fort sits under the cold glow of a full moon. Inside, the bandits, who are actually disguised Imperial soldiers, are celebrating their recent ambush. They drink and laugh around a roaring bonfire, completely unaware that a much greater threat is watching from the shadows. The men boast about their prowess, clinking wooden mugs filled with ale. From a window above, Haruto and Freya look down upon the scene, listening to their drunken banter as the soldiers reveal their true nature through their careless talk. Their leader, a rugged lieutenant, is being praised for the mission. He grumbles that it's nothing to brag about since Margrave Gordo, the man they call the Earth-Ringing Warhammer, managed to escape with his life. Their goal wasn't just robbery, it was assassination. The soldiers laugh, eager to finish their task so they can return to their home empire. Suddenly, a strange sound echoes through the room, a creak of a door and a presence that feels far too heavy for a child. The soldiers freeze, their laughter dying in their throats. Haruto and Freya walk calmly into the room, stepping over the bodies of the guards who have already been silenced. The soldiers stare in confusion and fear at the young boy and his maid, unable to comprehend how two people could have infiltrated their stronghold so easily. "Who are you people?" the soldiers scream, reaching for their weapons. But as Haruto casually raises his hand, they find their bodies locked in place. An invisible force pins them against the walls and floor, rendering them completely helpless. I can't move," they gasp in terror. Haruto looks bored by their panic. When they ask what he did, he simply explains that he's using a barrier to hold them. The soldiers have never heard of such a thing. Barrier magic is supposed to be defensive, not a tool for absolute suppression. Geez, so noisy. Haruto sighs, his patience wearing thin. With a cold, indifferent gaze, Haruto asks one of the soldiers to shut up. In a terrifying display of precision, a barrier edge slices through the air, instantly silencing the man in a spray of blood. Haruto doesn't even blink. To him, these are just obstacles in the way of his peace. The remaining soldiers are paralyzed with pure horror, their faces pale as they realize the child before them is a monster. The silence that follows is heavy with the scent of iron and the weight of Haruto's overwhelming power. Not good. I unintentionally put some power into it," Haruto mutters, scratching his head as if he'd just made a minor clerical error. He turns to the trembling survivors, his voice eerily casual. "It's all good if you can answer my questions." His eyes narrow, glowing with a predatory light that drains the hope from the soldiers' hearts. "However, if you happen to be lying, you know the consequences, yes? The threat is clear. Talk, or face a fate far worse than a quick death." The interrogation begins. Haruto pieces together the political landscape. The Empire, a neighboring kingdom, sent these men disguised as bandits to invade the Margrave's territory. It was a calculated move to destabilize the border. The soldiers spill everything, desperate to save themselves. They reveal that they had a collaborator within the kingdom who helped them bypass the border guards. Freya is shocked. Only someone with immense authority could have cleared their path so effectively. Cooperator, Haruto repeats, his mind racing. Haruto's expression darkens as he realizes the gravity of the situation. Who could it possibly be, he wonders? If someone inside the kingdom is aiming for his father's life, the danger is far closer to home than he realized. Such a move would require a level of authority equal to his father's. All right, thank you very much for telling me that, Haruto says, his voice devoid of any warmth. The soldiers look up with a flicker of hope, thinking their honesty might have earned them mercy as they've already withdrawn from the conflict. But Haruto has no intention of leaving loose ends. He turns to his maid with a simple, chilling command. Fry, could you burn everything alongside this fort? Don't leave a single person remaining as well. To him, these men are a threat to his father and his own peaceful life. The soldiers scream in protest, pleading that they were only obeying orders. Haruto just scratches an itchy ear, completely indifferent to their plight. I don't really care about your situation at all, he says coldly. I can't forgive those kind of people, you know? Like, aren't you guys the ones who did a surprise attack on father? Freya steps forward, her hands glowing with intense, magical fire. Her face is a mask of stern judgment. This is a punishment for you who have troubled my master. Better remember this well, she declares, her loyalty to Haruto driving her to execute his will without hesitation. The men howl in agony as the flames erupt, their screams echoing through the stone walls of the fort. They are trapped by Haruto's barriers, unable to escape the inferno that is consuming them. Oof. What in the world are you guys? The lieutenant gasps with his final breath. Outside, the entire fort is engulfed in a massive pillar of fire and smoke. Haruto and Freya stand before the burning ruins, two small figures against a backdrop of destruction. The raid is over. The threat has been neutralized, and the fort has been wiped from the map. As they walk away from the smoldering remains, Freya thanks Haruto for his hard work. Haruto simply nods, his mind already moving on to the next problem. He knows that simply destroying the fort isn't enough to secure their safety. Though I don't need to forgive someone who has been meddling in someone else's business, yes? Haruto says to himself. He doesn't know yet if it's a military officer from the Empire or a traitor from their own kingdom, but he's determined to protect his quiet life. He looks back at the fire one last time. For the time being, let's send an anonymous letter about today's matter to Father. He needs Gordo to be aware of the internal threat without revealing his own godlike power. Back at the Zemphis castle, a subordinate delivers a startling report to Margrave Gordo. They have confirmed that the bandits' fort, as described in the mysterious anonymous letter, has been completely wiped out. Gordo sits at his desk with young Charlotte in his arms, his expression frozen in pure disbelief at the news. Everything has been burnt down, you say? Gordo asks, his brow furrowed as he tries to grasp the scale of the massacre. With charred corpses making identification difficult, Gordo senses a deeper conspiracy and orders a re-examination of the letter's origin. He rubs his temples in frustration, wondering how the Empire's guards could have been so careless. Margrave Gordo's expression is grim as he processes the report. He had already suspected that these attackers weren't ordinary bandits, but the confirmation that the Empire is involved weighs heavily on him. He lets out a deep, weary sigh, realizing the political storm that is brewing. His thoughts drift to the anonymous letter. It specifically warned that someone was after his life, adding a layer of personal threat to the military conflict. It means that there's something uneasy going on. He muses, his mind racing through potential enemies within and outside the kingdom. Beside him, young Charlotte looks up, her innocent face masking a sharp and observant mind. She asks her father who could have defeated the bad guys. Gordo looks down at her, his face troubled as he repeats the question to himself. Who could it be, indeed? Gordo's analysis leads him to one logical conclusion. The mysterious attacker used fire with incredible technique and ruthlessness. He thinks of Freya, the legendary Fenrir who now serves them. Her power exceeds even his own, and she's already controlling the demons in their territory. To Gordo, she is the only one capable of such absolute destruction, completely unaware that his young son Haruto was the one who gave the order. Charlotte remains silent, her large eyes reflecting a growing suspicion. Unlike her father, she has seen something he hasn't. She's processing the events of the night with a maturity that belies her age, her gaze fixed on a truth that remains hidden from the rest of the world. As the full moon hangs high over the castle, the memory of what she saw flashes through Charlotte's mind. The silhouettes of Haruto and Freya soaring through the night sky. The impossible sight of her brother flying through the window is burned into her memory, a secret she now carries alone. Breaking the silence, Charlotte tells her father that she just remembered she has something to do. Her expression is determined as she jumps down, her mind already set on uncovering the mystery surrounding her older brother. Even Gordo is surprised by her sudden departure. Gordo calls out a warning, reminding her that it's dangerous to play outside and she should take someone with her. Charlotte just gives a quick, energetic salute, yes, before disappearing through the heavy castle doors. But her father's words go unheeded. She's not going out to play. She's going to find the truth. As she runs through the grand hallways, her thoughts are consumed by the image of Haruto. Dear brother, she thinks. The gap between the lazy, level 2 boy she thought she knew and the powerful figure flying through the night is too vast to ignore. Charlotte's footsteps echo through the empty corridors as she races towards an uncertain discovery. Her final thought is a question that will change everything. Dear brother, what in the world are you exactly? The secrets of the Zemphis family are starting to unravel, and it's the little sister who might just pull the first thread. Charlotte stands her ground, eyes wide and fists clenched. She's not backing down until she gets an answer to the impossible. Why are there two dear brothers? Freya, or Fry for short, is completely caught off guard. She stares at the little girl, sweating as she tries to process the sudden, sharp interrogation. Charlotte recalls the strange sight from last night, the shadows of Fry and her brother soaring through the sky. But when she checked his room, she found him fast asleep, looking as ordinary as ever. Or was he? In the quiet corridor, Charlotte explains her confusion. Her brother was there, but the usual terrifying aura she sensed from him was completely gone. Something just doesn't add up. Fry drops the act and gets serious. She admits that Haruto Zenphis possesses a magic power far beyond anything Charlotte could imagine. It's a secret she's been keeping for her master. Even I, a demon, can't reach his level, Fry boasts dramatically. She explains that Haruto's power has been immense since he was a baby, reaching a realm no ordinary human can touch. Charlotte realizes Fry already knew the truth about her brother's real self. But when she asks for more details, Fry shuts her down, bound by her loyalty and the secrets they share. Fry tries to distract the little girl with some cheeky remarks about her complexity. Charlotte just looks on, unamused and even more determined to uncover the truth. Inside the room, Haruto is having a minor heart attack. He realizes Charlotte didn't just see them flying. She immediately figured out he was using a clone. This shut-in life is getting complicated. Haruto panics, imagining Charlotte reporting him to their father. To stay one step ahead, he decides to set up a surveillance barrier. If she's going to monitor him, he'll monitor her right back. And so, the battle of the siblings begins. Haruto tries to go about his day, but he can feel Charlotte's intense glare from every corner. It's hard to even use the toilet in peace. Haruto stops, debating whether he should just confront her. Why are you monitoring me? He wonders. But the moment he turns his head, he catches a glimpse of her hiding. Charlotte, he calls out, but she bolts down the hallway at light speed. It seems his little sister is a lot faster than she looks when she's being a stalker. Failed again. Haruto paces around, unable to calm down. Meanwhile, Charlotte continues her diligent watch from behind the door, refusing to let her target out of her sight. Haruto's mother, Natalia Zenfis, a kind-hearted woman with long blonde hair, arrives with Charlotte to call him for his bath. Haruto hopes this will finally give him some privacy. Surely she won't follow him there, right? Relaxing at last, Haruto enjoys the warm water. This is the life he dreamed of: peace, quiet, and no one to bother him. He lets out a long, satisfied sigh, but the peace is short-lived. He looks up only to see Charlotte peeking from behind a pillar. She's here too. Even the bath isn't a safe zone from the sibling surveillance. It's been a whole day of this constant staring. Haruto is at his limit, but Charlotte seems more determined than ever. She's not giving up that easily, much to his despair. The next day, Haruto is out training his swordsmanship with his father, Margrave Gordo. But even during a serious duel, he can feel those eyes watching from behind the trees. It's relentless. Gordo notices his son's distraction. He suggests that Charlotte might finally be interested in her brother, and even proposes they become practice partners. Haruto, however, sees it more as mistrust than interest. The days turn into a routine of monitoring. Day 3, Day 4. Whether he's in bed or having a meal, Charlotte is there, silently observing every single move he makes. By day 5, 6, and 7, the stalking has reached a professional level. From the bathhouse to the hallways, Charlotte has become Haruto's shadow, and he's starting to lose his mind. During a family meal, Natalia breaks the routine with some big news. She and Charlotte will be going on a trip to a nearby festival. Haruto's eyes light up, freedom at last. Natalia explains that with the bandits finally gone, the roads are safe enough for their festival trip. Haruto is happy to stay behind as a shut-in, but he knows the peace in the region isn't just a stroke of luck. When Natalia asks about Freya, Haruto vaguely recalls her mentioning some negotiations with demonic beings a few days ago. Little does he know, his loyal servant is out there right now, handling things in her own fierce way. Freya is in the forest, looking tough as she keeps the local demons in check. Haruto realizes that behind her prideful facade, she's actually quite reliable when it comes to keeping the peace and protecting the nearby villages. Back at the manor, Haruto thinks he's finally managed to dodge Charlotte's constant gaze after a long week. But little does he know, his little sister is still watching him intently from behind her teacup, her suspicion as sharp as ever. Suddenly, Haruto is jolted awake in the dead of night. His eyes snap open, sweat beading on his forehead as a sharp, alarming ringing echoes in his ears. Something is very wrong. The alarm he set in the surveillance barrier he secretly placed on Charlotte is screaming in warning mode. Multiple magical displays flicker into existence around his bed, showing a rapid and chaotic sequence of events far away. Haruto's blood runs cold as the screens reveal a horrifying reality. "This is a lie, right?" he cries out, his mind reeling as he sees the ambush unfolding miles away, realizing his mother and sister are in mortal danger. The peaceful forest path has become a battlefield of blood and screams. The family's escorts are being cut down one by unknown assailants. The captain screams at the top of his lungs for Natalia and Charlotte to flee while they still can. Natalia Zenfis, Haruto's kind-hearted mother, is frozen in terror as she witnesses the brutal slaughter of their protectors. She clutches Charlotte to her chest, her eyes wide with shock at the violence erupting around them. The attackers aren't just bandits. They are highly trained Imperial soldiers. They move with cold efficiency, determined to let no one from the Zenfis carriage leave the forest alive, as the Zenfis guards struggle to hold them back. Desperate and fueled by maternal instinct, Natalia hoists Charlotte into her arms and sprints into the dense undergrowth. She knows their only chance is to disappear into the heart of the forest before the soldiers catch up. The forest becomes a nightmare labyrinth as Natalia runs with everything she has. Her lungs burn and her heart hammers against her ribs, while the shouts of the pursuing soldiers draw closer and closer behind them. Trapped and breathless, Natalia sees her last protectors fall in the distance. She realizes with a heavy heart that these are professional soldiers of the Empire, and she prays for a miracle to save her child from the coming blades. As the soldiers launch their magic, Natalia weaves through the forest, narrowly avoiding the lethal strikes. Magic circles flare in the air, sizzling with hostile energy as the soldiers try to pin them down with ranged spells. Natalia's only thought is for the small child in her arms. She puts her own body on the line, acting as a human shield as she desperately deploys her own magic barriers to block the shockwaves tearing through the woods. A magical bolt grazes Natalia, and she stumbles, a sharp cry of pain escaping her lips. Charlotte watches in terror as her mother is wounded, the reality of their life-or-death situation finally sinking into her young mind. In that moment of absolute despair, Charlotte points into the darkness, her voice steady despite her fear. She seems to be hearing someone, a mysterious, guiding voice, leading them toward a specific path through the trees. The Imperial soldiers are relentless, hacking through the foliage and magic barriers to close the distance. Their pursuit is turning the quiet forest into a graveyard of splintered wood and hostile intent. They reach a treacherous cliffside, and Natalia hesitates at the drop. But Charlotte is certain about the path below. Someone is giving Charlotte instructions. Natalia wonders, her mind racing even as they prepare to take a leap of faith. A massive magic circle flares into life beneath them just as they fall, catching them gently and guiding their descent. Natalia looks on in shock as the impossible manifests, wondering who could be manipulating magic on such a scale. Natalia is at her breaking point, her face smeared with dirt and blood. Her magic power is running out, and she's barely holding on to consciousness. Charlotte, though shaken, tries to keep her mother moving forward. "We can probably hide in that place," Charlotte says, pointing to a dark cave opening. Natalia is skeptical and wary, her eyes searching the shadows for the mysterious savior who is leading them deeper into the unknown. As they step inside the cave, the oppressive darkness vanishes, replaced by a soft, ethereal glow that seems to pulse from the very walls of the mountain, lighting their way into the depths. The cavern is filled with a brilliance that shouldn't exist in nature. Natalia stands in awe, her wounds momentarily forgotten as she gazes at the radiant chamber, wondering what kind of sanctuary they have found. Knowing the enemy soldiers are still hunting them, Natalia makes a hard choice. She tells Charlotte to wait in the safety of the cave, while she goes to find the person who gave the instructions and face their pursuers alone. Charlotte's fragile strength finally gives way, and she clings to her mother, sobbing. Please, don't go," she begs, terrified that the darkness outside will swallow her mother forever. Natalia pulls her daughter into a tight, final embrace, her eyes bright with a mother's fierce resolve. "It's okay. I will definitely protect you," she promises, her heart breaking as she prepares to let go and face the enemy alone. Natalia lets go of Charlotte's hand, pushing her further into the safety of the cave. Charlotte reaches out, her small voice crying, "Mother," as she watches her mom run back into the danger of the woods to protect her. Natalia steps out into the clearing, only to find the path blocked. She looks around frantically, her heart sinking as she realizes she's completely surrounded by the Imperial soldiers. She gasps, realizing there's no way out. She touches the magical screen that was guiding them, wondering who could have cast such an advanced illusion. Just as she realizes they've been led here for a reason, a cold shout rings out. "Found her!" The soldiers emerge from the trees, swords drawn and eyes full of malice. Natalia knows she cannot become a prisoner. The Empire would use her as a pawn against her family. She has to find another way. The commander demands her surrender, but Natalia's hand moves to the small dagger at her waist. "Then I should," she whispers, her resolve hardening. She would rather die than betray her kingdom and her children. In a moment of absolute despair, Natalia raises the blade to her own throat. She whispers a final, tearful apology to her husband Gordo, her daughter Charlotte, and her son Haruto, closing her eyes as she prepares for the end. Suddenly, a deafening crack echoes through the woods. Natalia feels a massive impact, but it's not the blade, it's something else. The dagger is shattered into pieces as a blur of light crashes into the clearing. Haruto Zenfis is there, his breath ragged and eyes burning with a fury he's never shown before. "I didn't make it in time," he gasps, even though he flew at his absolute maximum speed to reach her. Natalia falls unconscious from the shock, and Haruto catches her gently. His blood boils as he looks at the men who dared to push his mother to the brink of suicide. Damn it, this pisses me off," he roars. One of the soldiers dares to demand who he is, but Haruto doesn't waste time with words. "Shut your damn mouth," he screams, his magic power beginning to overflow in a terrifying display of raw force. With a single, overwhelming burst of magic, Haruto obliterates the entire squad. The soldiers are sent flying like ragdolls, their armor shattered and their spirits broken by the boy's unstoppable power. Sometime later, back at the peaceful Zenfis Manor, a very different kind of chaos erupts. Charlotte suddenly bursts into Haruto's room, her face glowing with pure joy. "Dear brother, let's play," she beams, throwing her arms wide. Haruto is caught off guard by the sudden intrusion. "You could at least knock, you know," he sighs. Charlotte just smiles brilliantly, promising she'll definitely do it next time, though her excitement shows no signs of slowing down. Ever since that day in the forest, Charlotte has been rushing into his room almost every day. She's even started being polite to the other dear brother, the copy he uses to slack off, which leave Haruto more than a little confused. "But well, I don't hate this," Haruto admits to himself. As he pats her head, he can't help but feel healed by her small, animal-like cuteness. It's exactly the kind of wholesome development he'd seen in his favorite stories back on Earth. While they're hanging out, Charlotte notices one of Haruto's magical screens showing the castle halls. "Dear brother, what is this?" she asks. Haruto tries to play it off as simple surveillance magic, but her eyes are wide with wonder. Charlotte's admiration for her brother reaches new heights. "As I thought, dear brother is an amazing person," she exclaims, her eyes literally shining with hero worship. Haruto just sweats, feeling the weight of her intense gaze. Haruto mentions that he's researching ancient magic to explain his unusual abilities. Charlotte's face lights up. "I have seen it in the castle's archives once," she says, grabbing his arm and insisting on guiding him there. They make their way through the mansion's halls and down a grand set of stairs. Haruto is impressed by how well his little sister knows the layout of the place, as she leads him toward a massive, ornate set of double doors. They step inside a sprawling, magnificent library that seems to go on forever, with shelves reaching toward the high ceiling. Even Haruto is stunned. So there's also a place like this inside the castle. He mutters, awestruck. Charlotte doesn't waste a second. She scurries around the tall shelves, climbing ladders and trotting back and forth until she has a whole stack of heavy books to show him, her expression full of pride. She flips through the thick pages and points out a specific section titled, "About the Possibility of Reviving Ancient Magic." Haruto looks on, impressed by her diligence and her desire to help him with his research. Haruto begins to read, finding the text genuinely interesting. It details how ancient characters created a unique form of magic tailored with background lore, a concept that feels oddly familiar to him as a former otaku. The book explains that ancient magic had no attribute, and it was only later that the 4 elemental attributes people use today were granted. Haruto wonders if his own barrier magic might be a form of this pure, ancient power. Haruto is surprised to learn that Charlotte has already read most of this book. She explains that her mother and Freya helped her with the difficult words, and she really wanted her dear brother to read it too. Charlotte looks at Haruto with eyes full of curiosity and wonder. She's determined to understand the mysteries of his ancient magic, and Haruto realizes there's no way he can hide the truth from his persistent little sister anymore. To get a better look at the books, Charlotte decides to sit right next to Haruto, or rather, she practically slides right into his personal space. Haruto is a bit taken aback by her sudden closeness, but she seems completely oblivious. Haruto points out that there's a perfectly good chair right next to them, but Charlotte simply tilts her head. She explains that her mother and Freya always read to her like this. Realizing he can't argue with that logic, Haruto just sighs and accepts his new role as her reading companion. They settle into the quiet of the sprawling library, surrounded by towers of ancient knowledge. It's a peaceful moment, with the genius little girl and the overpowered shut-in starting a journey into a different kind of magical world. Haruto begins to explain the concept of gods who can travel between worlds, similar to the stories he used to enjoy. He finds himself getting a bit nostalgic, missing the entertainment and the anime of his old life on Earth. Charlotte is fascinated. What kind of story does this anime tell about, she asks. Haruto hesitates, wondering if it's too complicated to explain, but Charlotte clenches her fists, insisting she wants to hear every single detail. Once he starts, Haruto can't stop. He gets more and more animated, using his hands and a big smile to describe the wonders of animation. It's clear that even in a world of real magic, he still finds anime to be something truly special. In other words, the pictures are moving, and they can talk as well. Haruto exclaims, his eyes sparkling with otaku passion. He's completely forgotten his usual shut-in aloofness in his excitement. Suddenly, he notices Charlotte's stunned expression. He panics, thinking he went too far and got too heated up for no reason. He's afraid his weird enthusiasm might have actually scared his little sister away. But his fear is misplaced. Charlotte's eyes are shimmering with even more excitement than his. The pictures move. What strange magic. I also want to see it, she shouts, her interest reaching a fever pitch. Haruto is relieved, but also a bit shocked by her intense reaction. I see. Char also wants to see it, huh? He stammers, realizing he's just created a brand new anime fan in another world. Charlotte gives him a heart-melting smile, telling him she's happy whenever her dear brother enjoys what he's doing. Haruto is deeply moved by her kindness, feeling like he's the luckiest brother in the world. Touched by her sweet words, Haruto makes a silent vow to his mother. Mother, thank you for raising Char to be this kind girl. Brother will do his best so we can see anime, he thinks, his heart racing with newfound purpose. 2 weeks pass, filled with magical trials and errors. Finally, the impossible plan is a success. Haruto has managed to hack the magic of this world to connect to the modern Japanese network through a site he calls manhwa. He successfully accesses a video distribution site, and, amazingly, his personal account from his previous life is still alive and active. He doesn't question the logic. He's just happy to have his watch list back. Ever the responsible older brother, Haruto carefully navigates to the kids section. He knows he can't neglect his duty and needs to make sure Charlotte doesn't accidentally stumble onto any anime for adults. Charlotte stares at the screen in disbelief. As such a thing, even these many. She's completely overwhelmed by the sheer number of titles available on this magical tool. Haruto tells her to choose whichever one she likes. Charlotte points to a show with a cute girl on the cover, asking if she can move too. Haruto clicks play, ready to start their first emotional shower together. It's a historic moment for the Zenfis family. As the animation begins, Charlotte is completely transfixed. So, this is anime. The picture is moving. It can talk as well. Wonderful, she whispers, her eyes shining like stars in the dark library. She turns to Haruto with the brightest smile he's ever seen. I'm really impressed with dear brother right now. Haruto can't help but feel a swell of pride. Finally, his lifelong hobby is being appreciated by someone he cares about. But there's one hurdle remaining, the language barrier. Since the anime is in Japanese, Charlotte doesn't understand a word. She looks at Haruto with pleading eyes, begging him to teach her the language of this amazing magic. Haruto thinks it'll be a long, steady process, considering she's only 5 years old. But he's in for a massive shock. In just 2 short hours, Charlotte has masterfully memorized hiragana and katakana using the manhwa search tool. Haruto stares in pure horror and awe. She's already using the search engine and even recognizing low-level kanji. What in the world is wrong with the children in this world? He screams internally, realizing his little sister is a true once-in-a-century genius.